Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the GMS number M100 SC26D ATA2 is their part number. We're going to dissect that part number, but first let's just talk about what it is. What it is a simple 1-inch length mortise cylinder. Typical 1-inch length aluminum storefront. Very typical, very common for aluminum storefront. This is going to be in the satin chrome finish. It's going to be in a Schlage C keyway. It's going to be drilled 5 pin and pinned 5. An original factory look-alike head on the key blank. This model includes an Adams right cam along with what we would call a standard cam. A standard cam would be used in accessory hardware like cylinder dogging on panic devices, key switches, and very old mortise locks. Mortise locks from the 19 teens, 20s, 30s. You know, those cast iron mortise lock cases would take a standard cam. And they would also probably take about 1.25 inch length mortise cylinder as well. If you're dealing with a 1-inch length cylinder, it's very likely aluminum storefront. Can't think of anything else that calls out a 1-inch cylinder. You know, if it's 1 1/8, it's mortise locks. 1 1/4 key bypass would be very typical and very common. Let's take a closer look at this cylinder itself. And what we've got here is a piece of solid brass. A solid brass cylinder housing. A solid brass cylinder plug. Makes for very tight machining tolerances when the manufacturer manufactures the material. That is going to give you, as the user, very smooth, long-term, reliable, dependable use out of it. When you're keying the material, it's lovely to work on because it's a quality item. What I'm saying is cylinders that are made of die-cast zinc, let's say, they're not so much at all that case. And anything made of solid brass will certainly be superior, as is this. Now, 1 inch, that is the dimension from the underside of the head to the back of the cam. We put a tape measure on the other side of the head to the back of the cam, and that's indeed what we get. This is a typical 1.5-inch diameter, 32 threads per inch. I don't know how many decades that has been a standard, but it is probably over a century. And could be, I would say that it's probably from the somewhere in the middle portion of the 19th century, if not earlier. I'm guessing just based on exposure to very old catalogs that would take a mortise cylinder. So I would guess this is to be a standard for at least 150 years. Not that every mortise lock or every type of hardware that takes a threaded mortise cylinder is 1.15. There are 1.5 inch diameter cylinders. There are 3/4 inch cylinders, but this is the common one. Exact pinning specifications as original systems. So what they're saying is the bitting that's etched on there, the depth and spacing is going to be identical to this factory Schlage, their original specifications. So your depth cuts and your spacing from the shoulder to the center of each, from your shoulder to the center of the first cut, then your center to center cut afterward should come right off of the Schlage depth, DSD, depth, spacing, whatever. I thought it were DSD charts. Depth and spacing charts. Solid brass accepts original pins when pinning to original master key systems. We covered that. Now, let's jump into the product catalog, and that's going to allow us to really dissect the part number. And the purpose of doing that is it will allow you to understand how you can change the part number to get other things that you would possibly want from GMS. So getting to the manufacturer's catalog, do a find function, Control F on your keyboard, and you'll be able to find the M100. You're also going to find its sister products, the M15/16, the M156, the M118, the M114, the M138, and the M112. Okay, those are all different lengths. You can see what that looks like there. There is then, as you continue to scroll through, a schematic of if you were to thoroughly disassemble this to its core components, you would look at that schematic that's there, you wouldn't be able to pull off what they call the face cover or the scalp plate. That's just a very thin piece of brass covering the brass. Okay. You've got your spring cover, springs, top pins or driver pins, bottom pins, 2 screws for the cam itself, its housing, its face cover, and its plug. Very simple material. Now, how to order mortise cylinders. Okay, so we know that we're dealing with an M100. Great, we've got a 1-inch cylinder. Then we get into the keyway, and our keyway here is SC, so we go down the chart. That's Schlage C, the classic Schlage keyway that is likely the most or second most common keyway in the United States for sure. You can see that there are many other options here for keyways, especially Schlage. You can do an E keyway or an F keyway. You can also do the SX. That is a composite keyway, which means any of the Schlage classic keyways, and I think there are 7 of them, C, E, CE, F, EF, G, FG. I think those are the 7. All 7 of those will pass through that SX cylinder plug because that plug has been broached so large so that all those keys can actually pass through there. A very bad idea to have an SX keyway because there's so much slop in the plug itself that you're not going to get the proper writing of the key blank in its millings at all. And while it's true to say that the keys are going to operate the cylinder, it does widen the broaching in the cylinder plug substantially, making it far easier to pick because you've got more room inside of the broaching of the plug to manipulate your tool. Also, worn plugs that are SX or composite, it would be called a composite broaching on the plug. You know, after a while, you know, you're going to be able to move the key inside of the plug. You'll be able to move it around, and that's, you know, your locksmith is going to tell you, what do you want me to do with this? You know, your keys don't work because if you lift it up, it doesn't work. If you put it in the middle, it'll work. If you put it down, you know. So I would avoid that if you can. Other keyways are there. Lots of common keyways. Other keyways that are not common. I have very little experience with any of the ASA products. It's European. They do exist in the United States, but they're considered high security. The Corbin material, the Sargent material, the Weiser Yale, that's all pretty common. Then, of course, your finish, we're dealing with 26D. That's just that blue peel-away protective film that's there. Then we get into the cam, and we have an AT. AT is an Adams Wright and a Yale cam, and it's interesting they call that a Yale cam because Yale is certainly a big name in mortise locks, and if you go back to the 19th century and the early 20th century, Yale mortise locks, they take standard cams. They call it a Yale cam. We're calling it a standard cam. This is what you'd use if you had a 100-year-old Yale mortise lock. Keying, this box says A2, key to like. This client bought 1, so had they bought 2 A2s, there would be 2 cylinders that would have 4 keys total that worked everything. So keep in mind, you can change that value to get the keying requirements that you want, but as importantly, we can do any of that key work here as well. Key to like, key different, Maison keying, master keying, Brinks functions, lots of options in terms of keyways, keying requirements. So please feel free to reach out to us for that. Finally, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Schlage products. Not only will you be able to find all of the GMS products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website as well, again, as that full-line catalog. Any questions on the GMS M100 SC and a 26D with an A2 cam or any other GMS product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.